3, 2, 1, SHABANG!
Yeah. Hi everyone, Monique Renee here, and Bailey. And welcome to one of my limited edition Storytime episodes. You gonna go play? Okay. For today's Storytime episode, I want to talk to you about the time I was on CreativeLive. I was actually on CreativeLive, the episode with Peter Hurley, and he's talking about portrait photography, of course. There is quite the tale that goes behind this experience. So if you don't know what CreativeLive is, go to creativelive.com. I don't know about this year, but in years past, whenever they film an episode, it's free to watch streaming. And then after that, you could buy whichever classes you want. And the CreativeLive studios, one is in Seattle and one's in San Francisco. And I actually go to the Pacific Northwest pretty often generally, and I would always look and see if there was an opportunity to be in the studio audience while I was in Washington. But oftentimes I was hours away from Seattle and it just didn't work out until a few years ago. And I was on my walkabout trip, so I was spending several weeks in the upper left near Seattle on the peninsula. I looked into how to be an audience member on CreativeLive and what the upcoming live tapings were and when. And there happened to be one that December. I fill out the application and really didn't think I was gonna get it. Then I get this email. Hey, you've been approved. You can be in the studio audience in the Seattle CreativeLive during the Peter Hurley class. Oh my gosh, I was so excited. I had on my road trip some difficulties with the hotel chain. They ended up comping me 2-3 nights in a hotel, and I said, great, I will take that in December in Seattle. I figured out how to take the Dungeness bus line from Port Angeles, Washington to downtown Seattle. It had been a dream of mine to be at CreativeLive at some point, and honestly, one of my dreams is to be a teacher on an episode at CreativeLive. So let me tell you what happened though. And I just tell my daughter like, hey, I'm going to Seattle for a few days. And she said, hey, do you want to ride from my house down to the bus station in Port Angeles? I said, oh no, it's only a mile. I'll walk, it's fine. So she went to work that morning, and it was one of the few mornings that it was really, really cold and icy. And Port Angeles is basically a hill. So you've got the mountains that come down into the water. Everything is on these hills. But I thought, you know what, I'm doing this. So I had my little rolly luggage and my camera in a backpack, and I was like, I'm doing this. And so I walked to the bus station, and it took me a really long time. And I had to like walk around the ice patches. There was one part in particular that was so steep, I didn't think I was gonna make it. Just walking with my heavy backpack and my rolly bag. But I finally got to the bus station. And keep in mind, this bus ride is probably 2.5 hours. We take this really long bus ride, but it was a cool way to see the countryside. It's so beautiful there. Got up the next morning and I found a hotel that was very close to CreativeLive, so I could just walk there. I think it was maybe a mile. And so I walked to the CreativeLive studios, and I couldn't believe it the whole time. I'm like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. I'm about to walk into the CreativeLive studios. Not just that, I'm about to be in the audience. With the famous other photographer, this Peter Hurley. I get there and they have a meeting for everybody. And there's several people that at that point had been in the studio audience several times because they lived in the area. So it was fun to kind of meet them because I'd seen them on other shows. And they served us all breakfast, which was amazing. Then they took us into the studio and I went, bam, straight for the front row, put my little notebook there, and I camped out in the front row. That's who I am. And then we just had like 2 days of portrait photography classes from Peter Hurley. I don't know if y'all know him. He started off as a model, he sails, he lives in New York City. He has SHABANG, right?
3, 2, 1, SHABANG!
I'm right in the front row. So you can see like the back of my head in some of the class. If you own the Peter Hurley class, I'm off to the one side and I've got like this short hair. When you're in the studio audience, they also gift you that entire course. And so they just gave me the whole course that I just watched. So I'll show you some of the footage.
Which one? Camera right? I'm with you. 30%. Now we got pretty even lighting, I believe.
And at lunch one day, I asked if I could live stream from inside the studio while everyone else was off eating lunch, because they fed you lunch too. Yeah. And so before I went to eat lunch, I did a live stream and I still have it. So I'll show you some of the footage of me live streaming behind the scenes at CreativeLive. I just poked all around in the studio while it was empty. It was so great. And so we learned all these portrait tricks from Peter Hurley and saw his super complex lighting setup, and we were able to Q&A some questions. That was pretty awesome. It was very odd to be in a room with this person that in the photography realm was so famous. But he was super personable, super nice guy. It went fine. I made some friends while I was there in the audience because we would eat breakfast and lunch together both days. And then the last day there was even like a little reception where we had some hors d'oeuvres and some drinks. We took a big group picture with Peter Hurley. He really does love teaching. He's extremely funny. He's so funny. His Hurleyisms are worth the whole class. Even if you don't learn anything about posing and lighting, Hurleyisms, learn them, love them. One of my favorite ones that he said was, when he's trying to loosen up his clients, he says, could you explain to me your favorite spatula? People just automatically like, wait, what? And then you have this genuine smile. Another one is, oh, hold on. Can you reduce the space between your eyebrows? People are like, what? Right? So Hurleyisms, look it up. It was just a phenomenal experience, out of this world. I had to say yes. I had to make it happen. It was so wonderful to be able to be in the studio audience of CreativeLive. So the other crazy thing about while I was at CreativeLive that December was that it snowed in Seattle, and it didn't do that much. And so I extended my stay one more night because I wanted to photograph the night lights at the Space Needle and the Science Center down below. And then I wanted to go up in the Space Needle the next morning to photograph Seattle blanketed in snow. I was the very first person up into the Space Needle that morning. I was so excited. Y'all know how much I love heights if you saw one of my previous story times. It was amazing to see the city with this frosting of snow the next morning. But I had to get the very first one because I was taking that bus all the way back to Port Angeles. And so I did the very first one, got my photos, got down to the bus station, and this bus did go on the ferry. And while I was on the ferry, a person walked past me talking on the phone, and I thought, why is that person familiar? And then they walked past again, and I realized, oh, they sat next to me at CreativeLive 2 days ago. And so I stopped him. He was off the phone by then. And I said, oh my gosh, hi, where are you going? He says, oh, I've got a place over in Sequim, which is the neighbor city to Port Angeles. And I said, really? Oh my gosh, I'm going to Port Angeles. And he said, really? We're going to go up in the mountains on Saturday. Do you want to go with us? His wife and his mother-in-law and him were going to come through Port Angeles and then go up into the beautiful Olympic mountains there. And I said, yeah. And so a couple days later, I met him at like the Safeway parking lot, and we all piled in his car and had a grand time in the snow up there at Lake Crescent and surrounding areas, just taking pictures. It was so great. I'd made this new friend. So that is my tale of being on CreativeLive in Seattle a few years ago on the episode with Peter Hurley. If you ever get the opportunity to do it, do it. It doesn't cost you anything, especially if you're already in Seattle or San Francisco. Whenever they have live audiences, check to see if you can go. So amazing to go to a place that was one of the very first places to ever offer free online photography learning experiences. Now we have a lot of that on YouTube, but we didn't when CreativeLive started. And so huge props to Chase Jarvis for being the co-founder of CreativeLive and getting that all going for all of us photographers. And there are, I think there's only 3 pet photography courses on there, and they're getting kind of dated now. So if at any time CreativeLive calls me to do a show about pet photography, I am again gonna say yes, because I would love to teach on CreativeLive. There, I said it. Thanks for joining me on another episode of Storytime, this limited series. I have 2 or 3 more left to go for the year. If you haven't caught the other ones, be sure to watch the entire playlist here. Some pretty interesting tales, if I do say so myself. And as always, I wish you many woofs, purrs, and TREATSs. Thanks for the shirt, Rachel.